Violent extremism, a word that has been tossed around a lot in the modern day, especially with the start of the internet. But hidden deep below the surface lies a satanic neo-Nazi cult with over 64 years of history behind it. The Order of Nine Angles has had a long history, with supposedly over 50 murders behind it and what is likely hundreds of subcults connected to it. But who are they? The Order of Nine Angles is strange. They're decentralized. They're not a group, but at the same time, they also have a general group. It is strange, and it is going to make your head spin, but I'm here to really try to make it make sense. And it's been driving me insane. And this group is essentially just a collection of hundreds and hundreds of smaller groups all following the same ideology under this supposed order. And with years and years of history behind it, you can only imagine what they could have possibly done throughout this time. But let's start from the beginning. How did this group become a thing? There's a couple of main theories that leads to the creation of the original Order of Nine Angles. According to the group itself, apparently a man named Anton Long was initiated into the satanic cult and grew the modern morals and values of the order, leading to what it is today. But this character, Anton Long, it's a strange one. We have no proof of who Anton Long even is. Even to the group, it's unknown and has never been classified. But the current theory is that it was a man named David Myatt. David was a very prolific neo-Nazi in the UK, where he was a part of multiple groups including the British Movement, Combat 18, and the National Socialist Movement, before becoming a part of the Order of Nine Angles. But in his own words, he claims that he was never involved in the group and was only friends or was involved with people a part of the order. And some scholars believe in the idea that Anton Long could have been a name that was passed down, or it was a group of leaders, maybe something along those lines. Now, the history is really obscure and mostly unknown. During the 60s and 70s, there was a very little members, with some saying only 12, and some even saying there was only 2 people at one point. But then comes the 1980s, where a very important piece of literature comes out involved with the order. Fenrir, a book filled with poetry, Gothic literature, music, and any type of media related to the cult. And this started the slow and tedious growth of this cult. But in the 1990s, the group seemingly disappeared, right after claiming they had entered their second stage. This has had a couple of leads behind it. Some people believe the group had some sort of internal argument and went defunct. Some people believe that they went underground to build themselves somehow, but none of these really make sense. And then the 2000s hit. The internet had just started to become a thing everybody had, and very quickly and suddenly, the order was back into full power, with using the internet as a medium to discuss hate and in a place to spread their ideology. This is where some of the first cases of violence start to seep through the cracks. In 1997, 2 Swedish order members went out and committed a ritualistic killing of an Algerian man. This was the first reported crime under the order. But something stands out about this murder. They were not directly a part of the group. They were a part of something called a Nexion, a cell of the order. And these Nexions would reveal so much. They are vital to the order. A Nexion is a subgroup of the order. They believe roughly the same ideology, but with different members and probably different leadership. And this is basically what the order is. Just insane amounts of Nexions in the main idea to spread hate. But how many of these Nexions are there? And this is a hard question, especially because finding out which one is directly connected to the order is likely impossible, unless they have already been outed or you go in yourself. And while researching this topic, I noticed something. Almost every single satanic neo-Nazi group is related to the order, and I mean every single one. All the way from 764 and 218, which are directly connected to them, where 218 is focused on propaganda and social media presence, and 764 was focused on a child exploitation ring, and it goes way deeper. This exposed one of the Order's main goals, to unite Satanism. But how do they plan on doing this? Well, it's simple. Instead of finding unradicalized people and turn them into your members, why don't you find already existing neo-Nazi groups and crusade them? They have a tendency to infiltrate other hate groups and will spread their gospel of sorts. And this happened in the Atomwaffen division, where multiple Order of Nine Angles members held crucial roles in their system to promote their text. But now, how do you become a member, though? Now, I know that sounds absolutely diabolical the way I just said that, but truly, how does one become a member of the Order of Nine Angles? There's a couple of ways one could join. Some people say that due to the decentralized system that they have created, that anybody can join simply by reading the text and following the religion. But another way is that this group expects every member who starts to read the text that they must initiate themselves, and this is done on a trust basis. And to initiate yourself, they recommend the idea of being in good physical condition. And one of the first steps to moving up the graded system they have in set is to spend an entire night laying completely still without sleeping or moving, and then they must survive in the forest or away from society for upwards of 6 months. And this really makes me think, has anybody in this group actually done that? Because that's kind of crazy. I really can't lie. Now that we've talked a good deal about this group, what do they truly believe in? And this is extremely complicated. I still do not understand what is even remotely happening. But on a basic level, in their own words, they are a traditional satanic organization, and claim that they use these terms loosely in a more casual way than other groups. And in the same breath, they also heavily hate on other groups who don't do exactly what they do. By essentially is the satanic way of calling them a poser. In a sense, you can find two strains of the Order's ideologies. The first follows the idea of the book Hostia, which was written by the acclaimed Anton Long from earlier. This book follows a more traditional satanic approach to their ideology, with ritualistic killing, focusing on, in their own words, spiritual rape. Yes, this book is absolutely batshit crazy. This book also follows the guidelines of becoming a member of this cult, and there is a lot of random satanic meanings and words I do not understand, and if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not going to take the time to understand it. I mean, just look at it. Anyways, back on track. Now, the second strain of the Order is more focused around the idea of the infiltrating of the other neo-Nazi fascist groups and taking them over, as stated earlier. This idea is very interesting to me, as they don't have conventional propaganda tactics, and they can gauge a very specific aesthetic from them. Their posts online, it's kind of threatening, and it's very edgy 13-year-old, and I think that's the point. It's meant to get the edgy 13-year-olds to get riled up and be hateful, because who else would they target? Propaganda originates from another group named the Temple of Blood, where they focus on the exploitation of children and major abuse. But this group supposedly created the theme and the aesthetic of the Order of Nine Angles. Now, we get to the crimes, and this is what really messes with me about this group. It's absolutely horrendous actions that come out of this, and a lot of the violence wasn't started until the late 2000s, but that doesn't deny its existence. Let's start in 2019. A series of arsons against black churches were linked to the Order, and the files for these crimes were only just released in 2024. But this is where things get weird. In the same year, Ethan Melzer of the 173rd Airborne Brigade had distributed info regarding his regiment and the prospects, in quotes, to result in the death of as many of his fellow service members as possible, end quote. And in 2020, he was charged with conspiring against his fellow service members and leaked info to a Nexion of the Order of Nine Angles called, stay with me now, Rapewaffen, and the main Order of Nine Angles group. And in this, there was a series of outings related to this regiment in the order where they were all found with stuff related to the group in forms of literature, images, etc. And they had also been supposedly planning to open fire on protesters as a part of some kind of holy war. And in the same year, again, a teen in Durham, England was found guilty of planning a terrorist attack and sexually assaulting of a 12-year-old girl. And this list can keep going. From 2020 and 2022, there was over 20 cases related to the order and their subsidiary groups. And there's one thing I would like to iterate. They keep getting away with it. The United States does not recognize the order as an official terrorist group, as of me currently voicing this over, but the UK does. But in the same breath, you can notice that the UK government doesn't do anything about this group, and that can be seen from a lack of knowledge. Less than they simply just don't want to. The police lack the proper info to understand what the order's symbols and paraphernalia look like to be able to spot it in public or in a crime scene. So who knows how many cases have been connected to the order that we will never know because the police can't connect the two. And it's insane to me that this is happening. And they are going to do anything to obtain their goal of destroying Western democracy. And there is still so much about this group that I don't know, and I will never know, because one big thing about the Order of Nine Angles is they don't like people knowing about them. They really hate the idea of people researching them, and this is very apparent if you try to read their text. They have a language only they understand. They use a different calendar than us. That is insane. So while trying to research this video, I hit multiple walls of not being able to understand certain texts, and there's so much big words I cannot comprehend, and a different language still gets me. Like, what? And now the unknown. There's a lot about this cult that I, like said earlier, I don't know. And one big thing for me is that they like to use 3-number combinations when naming the Nexions or the subcults, like 764, 218. And on Pinterest recently, we have found the number 984. I don't know what this number is. There is no results when Googling it. The best I can find is an attack in 1984, which could correlate because they do sometimes put 1984 instead of 984. But who are these people? Why is there also only one account making all of the 984 content? And who's the 07B? There's just so many subcults and so many dead ends that we will never figure out. Unless somebody from the cult comes out about it, and that is very unlikely. If you made it this far, I just wanted to say thank you. I know I haven't posted in a while, and I know you probably don't care, and you're like, oh, you're actively clicking off. Oh no, bye-bye.